The mirror doesn't lie. 19 years old, with father's determined jaw and mother's gentle eyes. But what the mirror can't show is the crushing weight of knowing exactly when I'm supposed to die. November 23, 1801. Weehawken, New Jersey. A duel with George Eaker over father's honor. A bullet through my abdomen. Death 3 days later. I remember it all, the searing pain, mother's tears, father's broken expression as he held my lifeless hand. I remember the regret that followed me into whatever comes after death, and somehow, impossibly, I remember waking up again on my 15th birthday with all those memories intact. 4 years. That's how long I've been living with this knowledge, watching the pieces fall into place exactly as they did before. Every conversation, every political argument, every moment building toward that fatal confrontation. But not this time. Philip, father's voice booms from his study. Come here, son. My stomach drops. I know this conversation. It's July 4th, 1801, 4 months and 19 days before I'm meant to die. In my previous life, father called me in to discuss his latest political essay criticizing Jefferson's administration, the one that would eventually lead George Eaker to publicly denounce the Hamilton name. I could avoid it. I could claim illness, make an excuse. But then what? Would fate simply find another path to the same destination? Coming, father. Alexander Hamilton stands behind his desk, papers scattered like battle plans. His graying hair catches the afternoon light, and I see the exhaustion etched in his face, the weight of building a nation wearing him down year by year. Philip, I need your opinion on this piece. He gestures to the manuscript before him. Jefferson's policies are destroying everything we've worked to build. Someone must speak the truth. My throat constricts. Father, perhaps it would be wiser to let others carry this fight. His eyebrows shoot up. Others? Son, when has a Hamilton ever stepped back from defending our principles? When that Hamilton knew he was sending his son to die. I just think. Think what? That we should allow Jefferson to dismantle our financial system without opposition? That we should watch in silence as he tears down the very foundations of federalism? The passion in his voice, the righteous fire that I inherited and that will ultimately kill me, it's all here, just as I remembered. But this time, I see something else. The loneliness beneath his conviction, the way his hands tremble slightly from exhaustion. Father, sit down, please. He looks surprised but settles into his chair. I take a deep breath, knowing that what I'm about to say will change everything. What if I told you that publishing this essay will cost you everything you hold dear? His eyes narrow. What do you mean? I mean that sometimes the cost of being right is too high. Sometimes protecting your family is more important than protecting your principles. For a moment, the great Alexander Hamilton is speechless. Then his face hardens. Philip, I'm disappointed. This sounds like cowardice. It's not cowardice, father, it's love. The word hangs in the air between us. I've never spoken to him like this before, not in either life. We've always communicated through shared ideals and political discussions, never through raw emotion. Love? He repeats softly. You have a wife who adores you, 8 children who need you, and a legacy that will outlast any single political battle. Is one essay worth risking all of that? He's quiet for a long moment, studying my face. You speak as if you know something I don't. If only you knew. I just have a feeling, father. A terrible feeling that if you publish this, it will set in motion events that will destroy our family. The clock on his desk ticks loudly in the silence. Outside, I can hear mother's voice as she tends to the younger children, the sound of life continuing in its normal rhythm. Finally, father speaks. And if I don't publish it? If I stay silent while Jefferson dismantles everything I've built? Then you'll still be alive to fight another day. And so will I. The last words slip out before I can stop them. Father's eyes sharpen with a perception that has always terrified and impressed me. Philip, what aren't you telling me? My heart pounds so hard I'm certain he can hear it. How do you explain to your father that you've lived this life before? That you've seen him broken by grief, watched him seek his own death in a duel 3 years later because he couldn't live with the guilt of your demise? Just trust me, I whisper, please. Father studies me for what feels like an eternity. The manuscript lies between us like a loaded weapon, and I can see the war raging behind his eyes. Duty against intuition, principles against paternal instinct. You're asking me to abandon everything I believe in, he says finally. I'm asking you to believe in us instead. The words surprise even me with their intensity. In my previous life, I worshipped my father's unwavering convictions, never questioning whether they were worth the price we all paid. But death has a way of clarifying priorities. Father picks up the manuscript, weighing it in his hands. This essay could change the course of the nation's political dialogue. And burying it could save our family. Since when did you become so, he pauses, searching for the word, cautious? Since I felt a bullet tear through my abdomen. Since I watched you weep over my corpse. Since I learned that honor is worthless if you're not alive to defend it. Since I realized that living with principles is better than dying for them. A knock at the door interrupts us. Mother enters, her face bright with the kind of joy that I remember slowly draining away after my death. Alexander, dinner is ready. Philip, you look pale. Are you feeling well? The concern in her voice nearly breaks me. Elizabeth Hamilton, patient, devoted, strong enough to hold our family together through every political storm Father created. In my other life, she never fully recovered from losing me. The light in her eyes dimmed permanently, and though she lived for another 50 years, part of her died in that room in November 1801. I'm fine, Mother, just discussing politics with Father. She sighs. You too and your politics. Come eat before your food gets cold. As she turns to leave, Father suddenly speaks. Eliza, wait. She pauses in the doorway. Yes? Do you think there are times when a man should choose family over principle? Mother's expression grows serious. She's always been Father's moral compass, the one person whose opinion could sway him when no one else could. I think, she says slowly, that a man's first duty is to those who love him. Principles are important, Alexander, but they're cold comfort when your family is grieving. Father and I exchange glances. The weight of her words settles over the room like a blanket. Why do you ask? Mother continues. Father looks down at the manuscript. Just wondering about the cost of always being right. The cost is too high if it means losing what matters most, she says firmly. Now come to dinner, both of you. After she leaves, we sit in renewed silence. I can see Father's resolve wavering, and for the first time since waking up in this second life, I feel a flicker of hope. If I don't publish this, he says quietly, Eaker will have no reason to attack our family's honor. My blood runs cold. I never told him about Eaker. What do you know about George Eaker? He's been waiting for an opportunity to strike at me politically. This essay would give him that opening. Father's political instincts are as sharp as ever. You're not the only one who can see the potential consequences, son. Then you understand why I'm asking you to reconsider. He nods slowly. I'm beginning to. But then his jaw sets in that familiar stubborn line. However, I can't let fear dictate my actions. If not this essay, Eaker will find another excuse. Men like him always do. But not this excuse. Not this time. And then what? I spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, wondering when the next attack will come. At least you'd have a rest of your life. Father, I need to tell you something, and I need you to promise you'll hear me out. His expression grows concerned. Philip, you're scaring me. I take a deep breath, knowing that what I'm about to say will either save us both or convince him I've lost my mind. What if I told you that I know exactly how this story ends? That I've seen the future and it's worse than you can imagine? Father goes very still. What are you talking about? I'm talking about November 23rd, 1801. I'm talking about Weehawken. I'm talking about a duel that destroys everything you love. The color drains from his face. How could you possibly know? Because I lived it, Father. I died in that duel, and somehow I'm here again, with a chance to change everything. The silence that follows is deafening. Father stares at me as if I've spoken in a foreign language, his brilliant mind struggling to process the impossible. He begins, then stops. That's not possible. Isn't it? You've always said that our nation was built on the impossible. That reason and logic could create something that had never existed before. Why couldn't the same be true for this? He stands abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, the summer evening is peaceful, giving no hint of the storm brewing in this room. Even if what you're saying were true, he says without turning around, how do I know that avoiding this confrontation won't lead to something worse? It's a fair question, one I've tortured myself with for 4 years. I don't know, but I know what happens if we stay on this path. I know that in 4 months I'll be dead. And 3 years after that, you'll follow me. He spins around. What? July 11th, 1804. Aaron Burr. The same place where I died. Father's face goes white. How could you know that? Because grief will drive you to it. Because you'll blame yourself for my death and seek your own. Because our family will be destroyed twice over, and it all starts with this essay. The manuscript seems to pulse on his desk like a beating heart. Father looks at it, then at me, then back at the essay that could doom us all. If I burn this, he whispers, will you live? I don't know, but if we don't try, I'll definitely die. He walks to his desk with heavy steps, picks up the manuscript, and looks at it one final time. Then, without another word, he walks to the fireplace and tosses it into the flames. We watch together as months of work turn to ash, as the words that would have destroyed our family disappear into smoke. But I know this is only the beginning. Fate has momentum, and I've only thrown the first stone to try to change its course. What now? Father asks. Now we prepare for George Eaker to find another way to come after us. Because men like him always do. 3 months pass in an uneasy peace. father throws himself into other work, legal cases, financial consultations, anything that keeps him away from the inflammatory political writing that once defined him. Mother notices the change and seems cautiously hopeful, though she doesn't understand its cause. But I know better than to relax. I've learned to read the undercurrents of New York society, to notice when conversations stop as I enter a room, to feel the weight of hostile stares. George Ecker is still out there, still hungry for a way to strike at the Hamilton name. The answer comes on an October evening at the Park Theater. I'm attending a performance with my friend Richard Price, trying to maintain some semblance of normal 19-year-old life. The play is forgettable, but the intermission proves unforgettable in the worst possible way. Well, well, a familiar voice drawls behind me. If it isn't young Hamilton. I turn to see George Ecker approaching with two companions, his smile sharp as a blade. He's older than me by several years, with the kind of confidence that comes from inherited wealth and unearned privilege. In my previous life, I thought him merely annoying. Now I see him for what he truly is, dangerous. Mr. Ecker, I reply evenly. Enjoying the performance? Indeed, though I must say it's refreshing to see tragedy performed on stage rather than living it out in our daily politics. The barb is subtle but clear. Even without Father's essay to use as ammunition, Ecker has found his opening. I'm not sure I follow your meaning, I say, though I absolutely do. Oh, come now, Philip, surely you've noticed how your father has grown. Quiet lately? Less willing to defend his precious Federalist principles. Some might call it wisdom, but others might wonder if the great Alexander Hamilton has simply lost his nerve. My blood begins to simmer. This is how it started before. Subtle insults designed to provoke a reaction. But I'm not the impulsive boy I was in my previous life. My father chooses his battles wisely, I reply. Perhaps others should learn to do the same. Ecker's companions chuckle, sensing blood in the water. Ah, but that's just it, isn't it? A true patriot doesn't get to choose when to defend his country. He answers the call whenever it comes. And what call might that be, Mr. Ecker? The call to prevent our nation from sliding into the chaos that your father's financial policies have created. The call to resist the aristocratic tendencies of men who think their revolutionary service gives them the right to rule forever. Each word is carefully chosen, designed to sting. I feel the familiar Hamilton temper rising in my chest, the same fire that led to my death before. But this time, I have the advantage of experience. I see, I say calmly. And how exactly do you answer this supposed call? By attending the theater and making inflammatory speeches to anyone who will listen. The insult hits home. Ecker's face flushes, and his companions shift uncomfortably. I've just done what he's been trying to do to me, questioned his courage and commitment in a public setting. At least I'm willing to speak my convictions openly, he snaps. Unlike some families who seem to have lost their voice entirely, this is the moment. I can feel the crossroads approaching like a storm front. In my previous life, I would have escalated here, challenged him to defend his words. The path to November 23rd would have been set in stone. Instead, I smile. Mr. Ecker, I believe you've mistaken silence for weakness. My father has served this nation with distinction for over 2 decades. His record speaks for itself, regardless of whether he chooses to debate every political malcontent who seeks attention. The insult is delivered so smoothly that it takes a moment for Ecker to realize he's been called a malcontent seeking attention. When he does, his face turns scarlet. How dare you? Gentlemen, Richard Price interrupts, stepping forward. Perhaps we should return to our seats. The second act is about to begin. But Ecker isn't finished. No, I think young Hamilton needs to learn some manners. Perhaps his father's recent reticence has left him without proper guidance on how a gentleman should conduct himself. The theater lobby has grown quiet around us. Other patrons are beginning to stare, sensing a confrontation brewing. This is exactly what Ecker wants, a public scene that will force me to defend my family's honor. Instead, I do something unexpected. I laugh. Mr. Ecker, I appreciate your concern for my upbringing, but I assure you my parents have taught me everything I need to know about being a gentleman, including when to walk away from pointless arguments with men who mistake noise for substance. I turn to leave, but Ecker's voice follows me. Running away, Hamilton? How very prudent of you. The word prudent drips with disdain, and I hear the unspoken accusation, coward. Every instinct I possess screams at me to turn around, to defend my honor, to show this pompous fool what a Hamilton is made of. But I keep walking. Richard catches up to me in the lobby. Philip, what was that? Since when do you back down from a fight? Since I learned that some fights aren't worth having. But your family's honor will survive one idiot's opinion. Come on, let's go home. As we retrieve our coats, I catch sight of Ecker in the mirror behind the coat check. He's talking animatedly to his companions, gesturing in my direction. His face is flushed with anger and something else, disappointment. He wanted a confrontation, and I denied him that satisfaction. But I know this isn't over. Men like George Eaker don't give up easily, and I've just wounded his pride in the most public way possible. He'll be back, and next time he'll be ready for my new tactics. The question is, will I be ready for his? As Richard and I step into the cool October night, I can't shake the feeling that I've just delayed the inevitable rather than prevented it. The future stretches ahead of me, unmarked but not necessarily changed. November 23rd is still 5 weeks away. The news reaches me on a cold November morning, 3 days before my supposed death date. Richard Price bursts into our drawing room where I'm reading, his face flushed from running. "Philip, you need to hear this," he pants. "Eaker's been talking, all over town." My stomach drops. What's he saying? That you're a coward, that the Hamilton name means nothing anymore. He's been telling anyone who'll listen that you backed down from him at the theater because you knew he was right about your father. I set down my book with hands that don't quite shake but want to. Let him talk. Philip, he's not just talking. He's making it into a public declaration. He's saying that your father has lost his influence because his own son won't defend the family honor. The trap has been sprung. I thought I was so clever, walking away from the confrontation at the theater. But Eaker has simply turned my restraint into ammunition, using my refusal to fight as proof of everything he's been claiming about my family. There's more, Richard continues reluctantly. He's saying that if the younger Hamilton won't stand up for his family's reputation, then perhaps Alexander Hamilton should. He's practically challenging your father to a duel. My blood turns to ice. What? He's been very careful with his words, but everyone understands the implication. If you won't defend the Hamilton honor, then perhaps the elder Hamilton should. This is worse than my original timeline. In my previous life, I died defending father's honor. Now, by trying to protect myself, I may have put father directly in Eaker's crosshairs. I stand abruptly. I have to talk to father. Philip, wait! Richard grabs my arm. There's something else. Word is that Eaker will be at Francis Tavern tonight. He's expecting either you or your father to show up. And if neither of us do? Then he'll consider it final proof that the Hamilton family lacks courage. Your father's political career will be finished. I stare out the window at the November sky, gray and threatening. Tomorrow is November 23rd, the day I was meant to die. But fate, it seems, refuses to be cheated so easily. It's simply found another path to the same destination. I need to think, I say finally. Richard nods and leaves me alone with my thoughts. The irony isn't lost on me. In trying to save my life, I may have simply changed the manner of my death. And if father answers Eaker's implied challenge instead of me, I'll watch him die while I live with the knowledge that my cowardice killed him. I find father in his study, writing correspondence with the methodical precision that has always characterized his work. He looks up as I enter, and I see the worry lines that have deepened over the past few months. "You've heard," he says, "it's not a question." "About Eaker?" "Yes." "Sit down, son." I take the chair across from his desk, the same spot where this all began with that unwritten essay. "Father, I know what you're going to say. That this is your fault, that you should have handled things differently at the theater." He sets down his pen and looks at me directly. "But you were right to walk away." "Was I? Because now he's targeting you instead." "Let him. I've faced worse men than George Eaker." The casual confidence in his voice terrifies me more than any anger could. "Father, you can't challenge him. You can't give him what he wants." "And what would you have me do? Let him destroy everything we've built with lies and innuendo?" "Yes, let him talk. Who cares what George Eaker thinks?" Father's expression hardens. "I care. Our family's reputation matters, Philip. It's all we really leave behind in this world." "No," I say urgently. "What we leave behind is love. What we leave behind is the family that survives us. Mother, Angelica, the younger children, they need you alive more than they need your reputation intact." He's quiet for a long moment. "You speak as if you know something about the alternative." "I do. I've told you what happens if we keep fighting these battles. Both of us die, father. Both of us." "And if we don't fight? If we let men like Eaker walk all over us?" "Then we live. We find other ways to serve our country, other ways to make a difference. But we do it together." Father stands and walks to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. "You're asking me to become something I've never been. A man who backs down from a challenge. I'm asking you to become something more important. A man who puts his family first. And you think that's what your grandfather would have done? Or the men who died at Valley Forge?" The question hits like a physical blow. Father is invoking the deepest part of our family's identity, the revolutionary heritage that demands we never surrender, never compromise, never show weakness in the face of tyranny. "I think," I say carefully, "that they fought and died so their children could live in peace. So that families wouldn't have to sacrifice their sons for honor. But if no one is willing to defend that peace, then let it be someone else's son, father. Please." The word breaks on my lips, raw with desperation. Father turns from the window, and I see my emotion reflected in his face. Philip, what aren't you telling me? This fear you have, this certainty about the future, it's more than intuition. I take a shaky breath. The moment of absolute truth has arrived, the point where I either save us both or lose them forever to my seeming madness. I'm telling you that I've lived through this before, that I remember dying in a duel with George Eaker tomorrow, November 23, 1801. I remember you weeping over my body. I remember Mother's breakdown. I remember you seeking your own death 3 years later because you couldn't live with the guilt. The silence stretches between us like a chasm. Father's face goes through a series of expressions: shock, disbelief, calculation, and finally, something that might be acceptance. That's impossible, he whispers. So was our nation, but you helped create it anyway. He stares at me for what feels like an eternity. Then slowly he returns to his chair. If what you're saying is true, he says quietly, then you know how this ends. You know whether we can change it. I know what happened before, but I don't know what happens if we choose differently. I only know that we have to try. Father picks up his pen, then sets it down again. Eaker will be at France's Tavern tonight. I know. He'll expect one of us to show up. I know. And if neither of us do? Then people will think what they think, and we'll still be alive to prove them wrong another day. Father nods slowly. Your mother will be proud of us, both of us. For the first time in either of my lives, I see Alexander Hamilton choose love over principle, family over reputation. It should feel like victory, but instead I feel only the terrible weight of uncertainty. I've changed the pattern, broken the chain of events that led to our deaths. But I don't know what comes next. November 23rd arrives gray and cold. I spend the day with my family, playing with my younger siblings, helping Mother with household tasks, talking with Father about everything except politics. It feels like a reprieve, but also like a held breath. That evening, as the sun sets over New York Harbor, I sit in our parlor and listen to Mother play the piano. The melody is soft and sad, something she learned as a girl in Albany. Father sits beside her, turning pages, his face peaceful in a way I haven't seen in years. Angelica looks up from her embroidery. You're both acting strange today. It's like you're saying goodbye to something. Not goodbye, I say quickly. Hello, we're saying hello to something new. And maybe, just maybe, that's true. But I won't know for certain until the sun rises tomorrow, and I'm still here to see it. I wake on November 24, 1801, to the sound of Mother humming in the kitchen below. For a moment, I lie perfectly still, afraid to move, afraid to breathe, afraid that any sudden motion might shatter this fragile miracle. I'm alive. The date that has haunted me for 4 years has passed, and I'm still here. Sunlight streams through my bedroom window, and somewhere in the distance, I can hear the sounds of New York waking up, cartwheels on cobblestones, vendors calling their wares, the ordinary symphony of a life continuing. A soft knock on my door interrupts my wonder. Philip? Father's voice, cautious but warm. May I come in? Of course. He enters, already dressed for the day, but moving with an uncertainty I've never seen in him before. We look at each other across the small room, two men who have just lived through the impossible. How do you feel? He asks finally. Grateful, terrified, hopeful. I sit up in bed. Different. Different how? In my other life, I spent November 24th dying. Every breath was agony, and I knew each one might be my last. This morning, breathing feels like a gift. Father sits heavily in the chair beside my bed. I hardly slept. I kept expecting. He trails off. Expecting what? I don't know. A messenger with terrible news. A knock at the door from Eaker's seconds. Some sign that fate wouldn't be denied so easily. And instead? Instead, your mother is making breakfast. Angelica is practicing her French, and Alexander Jr. is building a fort out of books in the library. Life is continuing as if yesterday wasn't the day my son was supposed to die. We sit in comfortable silence for a moment, both of us adjusting to this new reality. Then Father speaks again. There's something I need to tell you, Philip. About last night. My stomach tightens. What happened? Richard Price came by after you'd gone to bed. He said Eaker waited at France's Tavern until nearly midnight, growing more agitated by the hour. When neither of us appeared, Father pauses. He declared the Hamilton family cowards and said our failure to respond proved everything he'd been saying about our lost influence. The words sting, but not as much as I expected. And the men who heard him grew increasingly uncomfortable with his display. According to Richard, even Eaker's own companions seemed embarrassed by his behavior. By the end of the evening, people weren't talking about Hamilton cowardice. They were talking about Eaker's poor sportsmanship and ungentlemanly conduct. I blink in surprise. Really? It seems that publicly challenging a 19-year-old to a duel, then ranting about it when he refuses, doesn't reflect well on a man's character. Who knew? There's dry humor in Father's voice, and I find myself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in months. So we're not ruined? Far from it. If anything, people seem to respect our restraint. Caleb Strong stopped me on the street this morning to say he admired our family's wisdom in refusing to be drawn into Eaker's theatrics. The relief is overwhelming. I had changed the pattern, broken the chain of events that led to tragedy, and somehow, miraculously, we had landed on our feet. What happens now? I ask. Father stands and walks to the window, looking out at the city where his reputation had just survived its greatest test. Now we learn how to live differently, how to choose our battles more carefully, how to serve our country without sacrificing our family. And Eaker? We'll find some other target for his ambitions, I suspect. Men like him always do. I join him at the window, and together we watch New York going about its business, oblivious to the small miracle that has just occurred in this house on Wall Street. Father, I say quietly, do you believe me now? About the other life, I mean. He's quiet for a long moment. I believe something extraordinary happened to give you the wisdom to save us both. Whether it was divine intervention, a dream, or something else entirely. He shrugs. Does it matter? The result is the same. No, I say, feeling lighter than I have in years. I suppose it doesn't. A commotion from downstairs interrupts us. Children's voices raised in argument, mother's gentle scolding, the normal chaos of a large family starting their day. We should go down, Father says. Your mother will want to see that you're well. She doesn't know, does she? About what was supposed to happen? No, and she never needs to. Some burdens are meant to be carried by those strong enough to bear them. We head downstairs together, and I'm struck by how normal everything feels. The same family portraits line the walls. The same Persian rug covers the hall floor. The same smell of coffee and bacon fills the air. Nothing has changed, and yet everything has changed. In the dining room, Mother looks up from serving breakfast with a smile that seems brighter than usual. There you are, sleepyhead. I was beginning to think you planned to waste the entire day in bed. Not today, I say, kissing her cheek. I have too much living to do. She laughs, not understanding the full weight of my words, and for that I'm grateful. Some truths are too heavy to share. As we gather around the breakfast table, all of us, alive and whole and together, I catch Father's eye across the plates of eggs and bacon. He nods slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement that passes between us like a secret handshake. We have been given a gift, a second chance, a new beginning, a future that stretches ahead unmarked by the tragedies that once seemed inevitable. What we do with that gift will define not just our own lives, but the lives of everyone we love. And for the first time in either of my lives, I'm not afraid of what comes next. Because whatever it is, we'll face it together.